The text message arrived on a quiet Tuesday evening while I was helping my 12-year-old daughter, Sophie, finish her history homework. My phone vibrated once. I glanced at the screen and smiled when I saw my younger brother's name. Ryan and I had always been close. Growing up, we shared a bedroom, played on the same baseball team, and promised each other that no matter where life took us, we'd always have each other's backs. I assumed he was calling to talk about his upcoming wedding. Instead, the message read, "Can we talk?" Something about those 3 words felt unusually heavy. I stepped into the kitchen and called him immediately. He answered after the second ring. His voice sounded nervous. "Hey, what's going on?" There was a long pause. Finally, he sighed. "I don't really know how to say this. A knot formed in my stomach. Just tell me. I need you not to come to the wedding." For a moment, I honestly thought I had misheard him. "What?" Another silence. Then the words that stayed with me for years. "My wife doesn't want you there." I leaned against the kitchen counter. "What are you talking about?" Ryan sounded miserable. "Claire thinks it'll make things uncomfortable." Uncomfortable? I've barely spoken to Claire outside of family dinners. I know. It's complicated. No, it isn't. I tried to keep my voice calm. What exactly did I do? Ryan hesitated again. Nothing. Then why? He took a deep breath. "She says whenever you're around, my parents spend more time talking to you. She feels like everyone compares me to you." I closed my eyes. Growing up, our parents had always tried to treat us equally. If I earned an award, they celebrated Ryan's achievements too. If Ryan succeeded at something, they encouraged me to cheer for him. Competition had never existed between us. At least, I didn't think it had. I've never compared us. I know. I've never tried to make anyone compare us. I know. So why am I being punished? Ryan's voice cracked. "Because I don't know how to fix this." When the call ended, I stood silently in the kitchen for several minutes. Sophie eventually walked in. "Dad, you okay?" I forced a small smile. "Yeah." She looked unconvinced. "You're doing that thing." "What thing?" The fake smile. "Children notice more than adults realize." I sat beside her. "Your Uncle Ryan is getting married." "I know. I'm excited." I nodded slowly. "So was I." She tilted her head. "Aren't we going anymore?" I looked at the floor before answering. "No." "Why?" I chose my words carefully. "Sometimes adults make decisions that are difficult to understand." She quietly reached over and squeezed my hand. "I'm sorry." I smiled. "So am I." That night, memories flooded my mind. Ryan following me around the neighborhood on his tiny bicycle. Building tree houses together during summer vacations. Sneaking downstairs on Christmas mornings before our parents woke up. Standing beside each other at our father's funeral, promising we'd always remain brothers no matter what happened. Those memories made the phone call hurt even more. Over the next several weeks, wedding invitations arrived for cousins, uncles, co-workers, and old family friends. Nothing arrived for me. Our parents avoided mentioning the wedding whenever we spoke. I could tell they were uncomfortable. One evening, Mom finally called. "I heard you talk to Ryan." "I did. I'm so sorry." "It's not your fault." She sighed. "I tried talking to Claire. It didn't help. I don't want you caught in the middle. You already are." She became quiet. "I hate this." "So do I." As the wedding date approached, friends kept asking whether I was excited to attend. Each time I politely changed the subject. I refused to criticize Ryan or Claire. No matter how hurt I felt, I didn't want people choosing sides. The night before the wedding, Sophie found an old family photo album. She smiled at a picture of Ryan carrying her on his shoulders when she was 3 years old. "Dad, Uncle Ryan really loves me." "He does. So why doesn't he want us there?" I stared at the photograph for a long moment. "I don't think he stopped loving us. I think sometimes people become so afraid of disappointing one person that they accidentally hurt someone else." The next morning, while guests gathered at the church and wedding music began to play, Sophie and I quietly drove somewhere completely different. Neither of us knew that before the day was over, a single unexpected event would force my brother to confront the true cost of the choice he had made and change our family's future forever. Instead of driving toward the church, Sophie and I headed to the small lakeside park where my father used to take Ryan and me every Sunday morning. We carried 2 cups of hot chocolate and a small bouquet of white lilies. Dad had loved lilies. Sophie sat quietly beside me on the old wooden bench overlooking the water. "Do you think Uncle Ryan is happy today?" she asked. I smiled sadly. "I hope so." "And are you?" I looked across the calm lake before answering. I can be hurt and still hope someone else has a beautiful day. She nodded thoughtfully. I think Mom would have liked that answer. I laughed softly. So do I. Around noon, my phone buzzed. It was my mother. I almost ignored it, but something told me to answer. Hello. Her voice sounded shaky. Where are you? At the lake. You need to know something. My heart skipped. What happened? The ceremony was delayed. Why? There was an argument. Mom hesitated. Ryan found out several relatives weren't invited either. What do you mean? Claire quietly removed names from the guest list without telling him. I frowned. Who? Your aunt. 2 cousins. His childhood best friend. And? She paused. Your name wasn't the only one she crossed off. Ryan had apparently believed the wedding would simply be smaller. He hadn't realized specific family members had been excluded. When he confronted Claire before the ceremony, emotions exploded. Several relatives tried calming everyone down. Instead, the disagreement became worse. Mom sighed. I've never seen your brother like this. A few minutes after the call ended, Ryan's name appeared on my phone. I answered immediately. He didn't even say hello. I'm sorry. Those 2 words sounded heavier than anything he had ever said to me. I should have stood up for you. I remained quiet. I kept telling myself it wasn't worth creating conflict. But all I did was move the conflict onto someone I love. His voice cracked. I failed you. I closed my eyes. Ryan, I don't need perfection. I just needed my brother. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, he asked, would you come here? I looked at Sophie. She quietly nodded. An hour later, we arrived outside the church. Many guests still stood in small groups, waiting. Ryan walked toward us before we even reached the entrance. The moment he saw me, he hugged me tighter than he had in years. I'm so sorry. I was afraid of disappointing my future wife. And instead, I disappointed my family. I placed a hand on his shoulder. We all make mistakes. What matters is what we do next. Ryan took a deep breath. He walked back inside the church. A few minutes later, he returned holding Claire's hand. She looked embarrassed. When she reached me, tears filled her eyes. I owe you an apology. I judged you without really knowing you. I thought people admired you more than Ryan. I let my insecurity become your punishment. I answered honestly. I never wanted to compete with my brother. I've always wanted him to succeed. Claire nodded. I know that now. She turned towards Sophie. I'm sorry you weren't invited either. Sophie smiled politely. It's okay. I just wanted my dad to stop being sad. Claire quietly wiped away another tear. That afternoon, Ryan made an unexpected announcement before the ceremony began. He stood in front of every guest and said, before we continue, I need to apologize publicly. I allowed fear and silence to hurt people who have loved me my entire life. He looked directly at me. My brother has been there for me through every important moment of my life. I almost celebrated this one without him. That would have been the biggest mistake of all. The church became completely silent. Ryan walked down the aisle, not to the altar, but toward me. He handed me a small envelope. Inside was the invitation that should have reached me weeks earlier. Across the front, he had written in pen, reserved for my brother. Always. There wasn't a dry eye in the church. The ceremony finally began. This time with every chair filled by the people Ryan truly wanted beside him. Months later, our family gathered again for Thanksgiving. The tension was gone. Claire had worked hard to rebuild relationships with everyone she had unintentionally hurt. She often laughed about how nervous she had been during those first family dinners afterward. One evening, Ryan admitted something to me while we watched our children play together in the backyard. You know what scared me most? What? I thought standing up for someone I loved meant losing someone else I loved. I smiled. And what did you learn? That real love never asks you to abandon your family to prove your loyalty. Years later, whenever someone asked about Ryan's wedding, very few people remembered the decorations, the music, or the food. They remembered the lesson. A family isn't held together by invitations, photographs, or perfect ceremonies. It's held together by courage. The courage to speak up for the people who have always stood beside you, even when doing so is uncomfortable. Sometimes the strongest bond between brothers isn't that they never hurt each other. It's that they're willing to tell the truth, ask for forgiveness, and choose each other again.